The Undertaker's tearful breakdown following the death of Hulk Hogan marked one of the most human, vulnerable, and soul-shattering moments ever witnessed in the world of professional wrestling, a world built on myth, bravado, and unshakable personas. For over 30 years, Mark Calaway had stood as the stoic phenom, the embodiment of silence and fear, a character so fiercely protected and respected that the very idea of him shedding tears in public seemed impossible. And yet, when the news of Hulk Hogan's sudden passing spread like wildfire, cardiac arrest at 71, it sent shockwaves through the wrestling world, and it broke the dead man in a way that no streak, no steel chair, no buried alive match ever could. When the call came in that Hogan was gone, Mark was alone at his Texas ranch, the sun just starting to dip below the horizon, casting that quiet orange glow that normally brought him peace. But as his phone buzzed and the words, "He's gone, it's Terry," echoed in his ear, he didn't move. For minutes, he just sat there, still, disbelieving. His hand slowly lowered the phone, and he simply stared out at nothing, the kind of stare that comes when a pillar of your past collapses without warning. His wife Michelle McCool later recalled that she found him on the porch, elbows on his knees, shoulders hunched, face in his hands. The strongest man she'd ever known was weeping, quietly, uncontrollably. Not for a colleague. Not for a co-worker. But for a brother. Because to Mark Calaway, Hulk Hogan wasn't just the man in red and yellow who main event WrestleMania. He was the reason there was a WrestleMania in the first place. He was the reason millions of kids fell in love with wrestling. He was the man who built the house that others like Undertaker would later haunt and protect. Their relationship had evolved over time, from cautious distance to fierce rivalry to mutual reverence forged through decades of carrying the business. And it was that evolution that made the loss even harder to accept. Backstage stories began to emerge. Of Hogan being the first to tell a young Undertaker in 1991, "You're going to be something big, brother." Of quiet moments during WrestleMania 30 weekend where the two legends spoke privately for hours about regrets, the early days, the pain, and how despite it all, they had survived. So when Hogan passed, it wasn't just the death of a man. It was the death of a part of Undertaker's identity. Days later, in a rare unscripted moment, Mark posted a video to his personal Instagram account. There were no effects, no filters. Just a man sitting in his home gym, surrounded by decades of legacy and pain. "I don't usually do this," he said, voice cracking with sorrow. "But today the world lost a legend. And I lost a friend." He paused, looked down, tried to breathe through the ache. Hulk Hogan was more than the guy who tore his shirt off. He was the guy who opened the door for me, for all of us. Tears welled. His voice broke. He wiped his face, shook his head. "I didn't think it would hit me this hard. But it does. Because even when we weren't close, I knew he was out there, still being larger than life. And now he's not." And with a whisper, he closed with 4 devastating words. "Rest easy, brother. Always." The post went viral instantly. Not because it was flashy or shocking, but because it was honest. Because when The Undertaker breaks, the whole wrestling world feels it. Backstage, stars wept openly watching it. Roman Reigns, a modern-day tribal chief, was reportedly seen wiping tears. Even Paul Heyman, long known for his cold calculation, was said to have silently walked away from the monitor, unable to take the sight of the dead man in pain. The rawness of the moment awakened something inside WWE. They announced a special tribute titled "Immortal Forever, The Life and Legacy of Hulk Hogan," and when it came time to choose who would close the show, there was no question, it had to be Mark Calaway. And so, under a single spotlight in the center of a darkened ring, dressed in a black suit instead of his iconic gear, he stood alone. No entrance music. No gong. Just silence and legacy. "Tonight we don't mourn just the man," he said. "We honor the myth. Hulk Hogan gave everything he had to this business. And now he belongs to all of us." He placed a red bandana in the center of the ring, paused, and walked up the ramp with his head bowed. No theatrics. No flames. Just goodbye. That image, The Undertaker walking away from the ring, leaving behind a symbol of the man who made it all possible, was etched into WWE history forever. Behind the scenes, grief settled like fog. Locker rooms were quiet. Meetings were shorter. Even Vince McMahon was said to have canceled appearances for days. For the wrestlers, especially the veterans, Hogan's death was the loss of their North Star. For Undertaker, it was something deeper, something personal. He pitched a new idea to WWE, not a flashy tribute, but a documentary series where wrestlers would sit in a chair, no script, and just talk about the real Hogan. It was called Wrestling Immortals. And Mark was the first to film. Sitting in a chair beneath a single hanging light, no gloves, no hat, no deadman, just Mark. Back in '91, I beat Hogan for the title. First time I really understood what it meant to be at the top. I was exhausted, adrenaline shot, sitting in the locker room, and he walks in, slaps me on the back, says, "Welcome to the top, big man. Now let's see if you can carry it." He smiled faintly. That wasn't just encouragement. It was a challenge. And I never forgot it. The series aired on Peacock, and fans saw a side of wrestling they'd never truly known. Men bleeding truth instead of staged conflict. But it was Mark's confession that stunned everyone. Back in 2003, I wanted to quit. My body was done. Hogan called out of nowhere and said, "Brother, you're not done until you say you're done." That saved me. Maybe even saved my life. Those words, those admissions, were more powerful than any tombstone, any WrestleMania entrance, any undefeated streak. At WrestleMania 42 in Houston, a special segment honored Hogan. The lights dimmed. A massive banner fell from the rafters, showing Hogan mid-flex, smiling. Under it, the words, "Forever Immortal." Then the gong hit. Smoke billowed. But it wasn't the dead man who emerged. It was Mark Calloway in a sleek black trench coat. He walked slowly to the ring, where a pair of red and yellow boots rested in the center. He knelt beside them, laid a white rose across the top, and whispered into the mic, "We all become legends one way or another. Some through fear, some through loyalty, some through love." Hulk Hogan gave everything he had. And now he belongs to history. But not just history. He belongs to us. Then the lights faded, and instead of darkness, a soft golden glow filled the stadium as a reimagined orchestral version of Real American played. And in that moment, The Undertaker stood in salute, not as a phenom, not as death, but as a brother. As a man broken but proud. Backstage, the WWE locker room stood in applause. Triple H embraced him, whispering, "That was beautiful, Mark." And Mark, ever composed, only nodded. "I didn't hold it together," he said later. "I just waited to fall apart until I was alone." Because grief never truly leaves you. It lingers in the sound of a promo. In the scent of old gear. In the absence of a phone call you wish you could make. And for The Undertaker, that grief became purpose. The black glove he left on Hogan's grave. The stories he shared. The voice he lent to.